I stood outside the private room. I was at a loss. After all, hearing with my own ears that the woman I had dated for a year had only been playing with my feelings, and that she had approached me as part of a bet with her fiancé. What was I supposed to do? I couldn't exactly storm in and flip the table. That wouldn't do. If I turned against her, where would I find another girlfriend who was beautiful, rich, and willing to spend money on me? What kind of situation was this? Did young Master Wang have some strange fetish? After all, Ningbing and I weren't exactly platonic. We had been living together off campus for the past 6 months. Anyway, enough about that. I might as well enjoy the perks of being the other man for now. A call from my supervisor disrupted my plans. By the time I reached the upscale club, I was half an hour late. When I reached the private room door, it wasn't fully closed. It stood ajar, leaving a narrow gap. I had just raised my hand to push it open when the conversation inside made me stop. Fang Yuan is all right, I suppose. He's pretty easy to control. I'll leave him hanging for a few more days. Then he probably won't be able to leave me. It was Ningbing's voice. She, my girlfriend of 1 year. You're making terrible progress. You're the esteemed Miss Bai. Yet it's taken you this long to win over a poor student. Don't forget our bet. Whoever makes their target break down and bow their head first wins. If you lose, then at our engagement banquet, the speech will be given according to my rules. Worry about yourself. Have you handled Xinci, that untouchable female academic genius who never yields to anyone? I stood outside the door and drew in a sharp breath. A year-long relationship was actually nothing more than a boring hunting game between the rich heirs who were engaged to each other. It would be a lie to say it didn't hurt, but that feeling lasted less than 10 seconds. Then my mind began racing. The question now was whether I should go in. What a headache. According to the usual script, I should kick down the door, demand answers at the top of my voice, throw drinks in their faces, and then turn away in agony. From there, I would embark on the self-pitying path of a tragic romance hero. But I was a normal person. I didn't live in the world of online melodramas. After a quick cost-benefit analysis, if I went in now and exposed everything on the spot, where would I find another girlfriend who was this beautiful and wealthy and generous enough to spend money on me? Last month, she had just given me a top-of-the-line laptop. I was using it to process my project's core data. Next week, she was also taking me to a closed-door, high-level industry forum. It would be filled with influential people I normally had no way of meeting. To throw all those tangible resources away for some vague notion of genuine love would be a terrible loss. Since she didn't treat this relationship as real, why should I put myself in the victim's position? Besides, when I thought about it, Wang Dateng was quite a piece of work himself. That young master had plenty of devious little schemes. For the sake of a stupid bet, he could send his own fiancée to date someone else. That young master had a real talent for making himself a cuckold. After all, Ningbing and I were far from platonic. She had even rented an apartment off campus for us. Wait, who did Wang Dateng say he was trying to win over? Xinci. So Wang Dateng had a target too. As I thought about it, from the dim emergency stairwell nearby came a cool voice. I didn't expect you to stay so calm. I turned around. A girl stepped out of the shadows. Her eyes were perfectly calm, without the slightest hint of anger at being deceived. She was the girl from our department who had topped the rankings year after year, the academic genius Xinci. She was also the final player in this game. Xinci and I exchanged a glance. Under the corridor's dim light, we saw the same things in each other's eyes. Clear-eyed calculation and a hint of amused mockery. Clearly, this female academic genius who always ranked first wasn't some helpless prey. Since we were all here to stock up on resources, there was no need to expose the truth prematurely. After all, the stage had already been set. If we didn't put on a convincing performance, how could we justify their appearance fee? I took 2 steps back, deliberately making my footsteps louder. At the same time, I took out my phone and called Ningbing. Hey, Ningbing, I just got off the elevator. Which private room are you in? My tone was gentle, with just the right touch of apology. On the phone, Ningbing's voice instantly switched into sweet girlfriend mode. We're in V8. Hurry over. Everyone's waiting for you. After hanging up, Xinci looked at me. The corner of her mouth lifted almost imperceptibly. Then she, too, put on a cool but slightly reserved expression. She pushed open the private room door. Inside, the atmosphere had seamlessly shifted into one of cheerful harmony. Ningbing fluttered over like a social butterfly. She naturally linked her arm through mine. Wang Dateng sat in the center of the sofa, wine glass in hand, wearing the refined air of a gentleman, yet his eyes were fixed hungrily on Xinci behind me. It was obvious that Ningbing and I were far further along than they were. After all, Wang Dateng was still trying to melt an iceberg. Ningbing and I had lost count of how many times we'd stayed off campus. I let Ningbing pull me down onto the sofa. From the corner of my eye, I saw Wang Dateng sitting opposite me. He was looking at me with an ambiguous smile. His eyes held that superior, condescending contempt. What was this guy so pleased about? Was he secretly enjoying this? Fine. You like playing the cuckold game, do you? I may not have many other virtues, but I do enjoy helping people. Taking the opportunity, I wrapped an arm around my Ningbing's waist and pulled her closer. I lowered my head to her ear and spoke in a stage whisper loud enough for the entire room to hear. What perfume are you wearing today? It smells wonderful. After saying that, I casually kissed her cheek. Ningbing's body stiffened for an instant, almost imperceptibly, but quickly relaxed. She obediently leaned against my shoulder and playfully tapped my chest. She couldn't very well refuse. After all, when we were alone in private, we had done far more intimate things than this. But I clearly saw Wang Dateng across from me. His fingers tightened sharply around his glass, and the vein at his temple visibly throbbed. He had practically handed himself the horns, yet still found them uncomfortable to wear. Xinci quietly watched the scene from the side. She was a smart woman. She saw my twisted sense of humor at once. The corner of her mouth curved slightly. In an unprecedented move, she picked up her glass and sat beside Wang Dateng. Senior. Xinci's voice was still cool, but she was less guarded than usual. The laboratory project you recommended to me last time has passed its initial review. Let me buy you a drink. That small step toward him, from the iceberg-like academic genius, was an unprecedented signal. Wang Dateng's attention was instantly drawn back. A flash of wild joy and triumph crossed his eyes. The few lackeys nearby who knew the truth immediately started cheering and teasing. Oh, young Master Wang, not bad. Miss Shang, our campus belle, normally never touches alcohol. Yet today, she actually offered young Master Wang a drink. That was quite an honor. Amid the flattery and teasing, Wang Dateng raised his glass with obvious satisfaction and clinked it against Xinci's. The way he looked at Xinci was as though she were a prize he was about to claim for himself. He probably thought he had this bet won. I leaned back on the sofa, idly playing with Ningbing's fingers, and watched the absurd yet harmonious scene before me. I had only one thought. These two rich heirs were idiots with money to burn. After the party ended, Ningbing and I returned to the luxury apartment off campus. I gave it my all tonight. Ningbing seemed surprised by how forceful and proactive I was, but soon lost herself completely. We carried on until well past midnight. She was so exhausted she didn't want to move a single finger, or even take a shower, and fell into a deep sleep with her face on the pillow. I showered, threw on some clothes, and stepped onto the balcony. The cool night breeze dispelled the heat from my body. I leaned against the railing and glanced back at Ningbing sleeping soundly on the large bed. To be fair, if I hadn't stood outside that private room tonight and heard those words, I really would have cherished her for the rest of my life. After all, I came from an ordinary family. My parents ran a small business in a rural county. Getting into this elite university was entirely thanks to the scores I earned by relentlessly drilling mock exams. Throughout high school, Ningbing and I had never belonged to the same world. She was the one who broke into mine. When she first pursued me, she was radiant, bold, and passionate. She gave me expensive gifts and arranged one chance encounter after another. She took me to restaurants I normally couldn't bear to pay for. As the saying goes, when a woman pursues a man, resistance is paper thin. I wasn't some emotionless monk. And when a wealthy heiress who only had eyes for you threw herself at you, anyone who could stay unmoved would have to be superhuman. Besides, she really did treat me well. She never put on airs like a spoiled heiress. So naturally, I agreed to be her boyfriend. I started planning our future, thinking about how I would work hard and make money, and achieve something worthy of her. I never imagined that she had a clear ulterior motive from beginning to end. This relationship was merely a bet between rich heirs to pass the time. But thinking about it carefully now, over the past year, I had occasionally seen Ningbing and Wang Dateng acting very close. At gatherings in their social circle, they always seemed to sit beside each other out of habit. I once asked about it. Ningbing was leaning against me at the time and replied casually, "Wang Dateng, we've been childhood friends since we were little. Our families are just close. Don't tell me you're jealous." I believed her. After all, I knew nothing about social life among the rich and didn't want to interfere too much. I never imagined they were not only childhood friends, but also engaged to each other. I looked away and gazed at the glittering nightscape below. I gave a silent laugh. I truly couldn't understand how young Master Wang Dateng's mind worked. Just to win some stupid game about making people crack, he let another man date his fiancée for a year, and even allowed us to live together off campus. That was downright ruthless. I savored the memory of the night's madness. Still, since you two like playing games, I had no reason not to enjoy myself first. Early the next morning, I fried eggs and bacon in the kitchen. I didn't particularly like eating them, but Ningbing did, so I learned to make them. I really had loved her. Wearing an oversized men's shirt, Ningbing walked barefoot out of the bedroom. She hugged me from behind, rubbing her cheek against my back. She was languid and flirtatious with sleep still clinging to her. That smells so good. Boyfriend. I turned off the stove, turned around, and lifted her onto the kitchen island. Then I gave her cheek a playful pinch. Go wash up. Breakfast is ready. Everything felt natural, like we were a genuinely loving couple living together. While we were eating breakfast, the phone by Ningbing had left on the table vibrated. She picked it up and glanced at the screen. The smile in her eyes instantly faded. It seemed to be a message from Wang Dateng. She bit her lip and slid the phone toward me. Fang Yuan. Look, the screen showed Wang Dateng's social media post. In the photo, Wang Dateng and Shang Xinci stood side by side. The caption read, suggestively, "I finally found you." I widened my eyes at just the right moment and put on an extremely shocked expression. Looks like quite a lot happened last night. By Ningbing pursed her lips, with a trace of barely concealed displeasure in her voice. Yeah, the iceberg melted. Seen by Ningbing's frustrated expression, I understood perfectly what was going on. Shang Xinci was worried that her defenses were too strong, and that Wang Dateng would feel there was no progress and stop enjoying the game. After all, if she wanted him to keep spending willingly, she had to give him some positive feedback. By now, and by Ningbing and Wang Dateng's minds, their progress in this hunting game was probably neck and neck. Sure enough, by Ningbing's competitive spirit flared up at once. She set down her glass of milk and grabbed my hand. "Fang Yuan, come shopping with me after breakfast. They've just gotten in several new men's watches and this season's couture pieces. I want to pick out a few outfits for you." I frowned slightly, pulled my hand away, and pretended to refuse. "Forget it, Ningbing. I have enough everyday clothes. Besides, last month, you just gave me such an expensive computer. I can't keep spending your money." This push and pull tactic worked best on a wealthy heiress like Bai Ningbing. The more you refused, the more determined she became to overwhelm you with money and luxury. Sure enough, Bai Ningbing raised an eyebrow, and her heiress's temper emerged. She leaned closer and wrapped her arms around my neck, half pouting and half threatening me. "If I tell you to go, then go. What's wrong with spending money on my boyfriend? You keep refusing me. Don't you love me anymore?" Watching her struggle to play the devoted lover in order to win the bet, I sighed helplessly. I reached out and ruffled her hair. "I love you. I love you. I love you. Happy now. We'll do whatever you say." Only then did Bai Ningbing smile with satisfaction. Like a triumphant victor full of fighting spirit, she turned and went to the dressing room to choose clothes, while I sat at the dining table, slowly finishing the last sip of milk. On the surface, I looked like a helpless but doting boyfriend, but inside, I was already grinning from ear to ear. "So, we're going to spend some money, huh?" "Sure. Boss Bai, you're generous." When we reached the shopping plaza, we ran straight into our rivals. Or rather, this was probably a tacit understanding between Bai Ningbing and Wang Dateng. We came face to face in the VIP area of a luxury watch boutique. Wang Dateng was leaning elegantly against a display case, with Shang Xinci standing beside him. She was still dressed in her usual cool, understated style, except that at the collar of her white shirt, there was now a sparkling diamond brooch. What a coincidence. Wang Dateng swirled the champagne in his hand and glanced over our clasped hands. A provocative smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Ningbing, shopping with your boyfriend?" Bai Ningbing snorted coldly and lifted her chin slightly, like a proud swan guarding what was hers. "What? Did you book out the whole store? Young Master Wang, I brought my boyfriend to buy a watch. Do I need to report that to you?" The air instantly crackled with invisible tension. On the surface, the two were merely greeting each other. In reality, they were showing off their progress in the hunt. Bai Ningbing pulled me straight to the most expensive display case. She pointed to a watch priced at 600,000 yuan. "Take this one out. Let my boyfriend try it on." Seeing this, Wang Dateng gave a soft laugh. He turned to Shang Xinci beside him, his voice gentle. "Xinci, that emerald necklace from earlier would look perfect against your collarbone. Have it wrapped. Consider it a gift to celebrate your project's approval." That necklace was priced at 800,000 yuan. Good grief. When did this turn into an arms race? I had barely finished complaining when I turned to look at Shang Xinci. She frowned slightly, clearly uncomfortable in such a lavish setting. "Senior, this is far too expensive. I can't accept it." Wang Dateng immediately took hold of her shoulder, wearing an intensely devoted expression. "Why are you still being so formal with me? What's mine is yours." The push and pull was masterfully timed. That coy, reluctant yet willing act. Shang Xinci would be wasting her talent if she never became an actress. The slight discomfort on her face, and her hesitation as she bit her lower lip, were so convincing that even I, knowing the truth, almost believed she had truly been frightened by Wang Dateng's passionate devotion. Wang Dateng, however, clearly fell for it. The more Shang Xinci refused, the more he believed she was pure and above worldly things, and the more determined he became to make her accept his gifts. Of course, I couldn't afford to lose ground either. I looked at the heavy watch on my wrist and furrowed my brow. I reached for the strap, intending to take it off. "Ningbing, this watch is too flashy. It'll be inconvenient to wear in the lab. I appreciate the thought, but we shouldn't spend this money." Bai Ningbing grabbed my hand and pushed it down. She was a little annoyed, but more than that, in front of Wang Dateng, her competitive pride refused to let her lose. "What's inconvenient about it? My boyfriend deserves the best, Swipe the card. She slapped her black card on the counter without hesitation. Wang Dateng refused to be outdone. He had the sales assistant put the necklace on Shang's Xinci, and along with the other pieces they'd chosen earlier, paid for several limited edition items. While the sales assistant wrapped everything, Ningbing and Wang Dateng each held a glass of champagne, competing with each other across the display cases. Shang's Xinci and I briefly met each other's eyes. She lowered her gaze, and the corner of her mouth twitched faintly. I quickly lifted my lemonade and took a sip, using the glass to hide my laughter. It really is hard for actors not to break character. These two elite hunters, convinced they controlled everything, were trying to prove who was better at manipulating people by throwing money at us like mad. Ningbing thought she'd won because I eventually gave in and accepted the watch. When I looked at her, I were just the right mixture of gratitude and helplessness. Wang Dateng also thought he'd won. Shang Xinci, who was always so aloof and principled, had finally put on the necklace he bought her. She lowered her head as if she had been moved. Both of them were secretly reveling in their victories, convinced that their charm and wealth were unmatched. Meanwhile, Shang Xinci and I carried bag after bag out of the mall, with probably the same thought in mind. Life like this was looking better and better. Exhausted from shopping, we returned to the apartment. Once the mood took hold, Ningbing and I didn't even make it to the bedroom, and did the deed right there on the living room sofa. When the living room finally fell quiet again, she lounged against me, her fingers still tapping away at her phone. A moment later, my WeChat vibrated several times. She had sent me electronic receipts. Receipts for a Vacheron Constantin watch and several couture outfits, clearly printed beneath each one. Each one clearly marked voluntary gift. She was afraid we'd argue over the gifts someday, so she had simply clarified their ownership in advance. That was another one of Ningbing's habits. I had no idea which relationship advice video had taught her this trick. Whenever she gave someone something valuable, she followed up with a disclaimer. I used to think it was unnecessary. We were dating, not doing business. Why draw such a clear line? Back then, Ningbing had leaned against my shoulder, her face, her expression completely serious. Although we definitely won't break up, what if we argue someday? It would be ugly to fight over money. If everything is clearly documented, you can use it without worry. I had genuinely been touched at the time. Now, thinking about it, I found it deeply ironic. To make me lower my guard completely, she had even eliminated the legal risks for me. As long as I accepted her gifts without feeling burdened and kept believing in her devotion, her strategy would count as a success. These receipts had once been proof meant to ease my concerns. Now, they had become the most reassuring delivery slips imaginable. But to them, this wasn't even a sunk cost. The Bai and Wang family's daily earnings might exceed what they'd spent today. Why was I worrying about that? I should simply accept it with a clear conscience. I looked down at Ningbing in my arms. Her long eyelashes were still trembling softly, and a blush lingered at the corners of her eyes. She rested quietly against me. To be fair, if I hadn't overheard that bet outside the private room, I would probably still have thought she had carefully considered everything for my sake. Thinking of her eventually marrying someone like Wang Dateng, I finally understood Chancellor Cao's taste for other men's wives. I lifted her into my arms and carried her into the bathroom as she let out a startled cry. More than an hour later, the sound of water finally stopped. She no longer had the strength to stand. I carried her back to bed, where she curled up under the covers and rested for quite a while, before reaching out to hook an arm around my neck. Fang Yuan, there's a dinner party in our circle next Saturday. Come with me. She looked at me, hopeful, yet as if weighing something. I tucked her in and bent down to kiss her forehead. All right, don't worry. I definitely won't disappoint you. Ningbing closed her eyes in satisfaction and soon fell asleep. I leaned against the headboard, staring at the ceiling and the dim light of the bedside lamp. Actually, this wasn't my first time accompanying her to an event like this. When we first started dating, I had worked hard to fit into her social circle. I had put in no small amount of effort in private. I searched the internet obsessively, studying wine tasting and Western dining etiquette, the obscure luxury brands, their pronunciations, and the language of high society. I studied every last one of them. I absorbed all that knowledge like a sponge, just so I wouldn't look out of place beside her. As it turned out, I really was a fast learner. After several dinners, I had never embarrassed her. In fact, because I knew when to advance and retreat, and spoke with grace, I had earned her plenty of respect. So, Ningbing increasingly enjoyed bringing me to all kinds of exclusive events. I used to think she wanted to bring me into her world. Only now did I realize she had merely been showing off her trophy everywhere. A top engineering student from an ordinary background, who could move effortlessly among the elite, was the clearest proof of her progress in the game. I thought she was paving the way for me, but she used those admiring looks to prove that she had turned me inside and out into Ningbing's boyfriend. Since next week's event was also a gathering of their circle, judging by today's arms race, Wang Dateng, unwilling to fall behind, would definitely bring Shang Xinci along. At that thought, I smiled silently. Elite heirs, an engaged couple bringing along their supposedly beloved commoner prey to compete on the same stage. There was no helping it. Xinci, and I had to keep up the performance. When you take someone's money, you have to give them the full emotional payoff. We can't pretend to be above it all and turn down the money and connections, can we? Saturday's dinner was held at a private club in Jing City. By the time Ningbing and I arrived, Wang, Dateng, and Shang Xinci were already there. Gatherings in their circle never lack spectators. The privileged heirs nearby, champagne glasses in hand, wore strange expressions as they watched Shang Xinci and me. Some looked amused. Others looked pitying. Clearly, quite a few of them knew about this hunting game. Some had even placed bets in the corner on who would cry more miserably when Shang Xinci and I broke up. I remained completely unfazed. I even wanted to ask what the odds were and whether I could bet on myself. They'd paid us, so we had to make it worth their while. Shang Xinci and I displayed the utmost professionalism. Our manners were impeccable, and no one could find fault with our conversation. Halfway through the dinner, Wang Dateng led Shang Xinci to the piano in the center of the hall. She lowered her eyes slightly, and her fingers fell. As a difficult etude flowed from the keys, the music stunned everyone in the room. Every eye turned toward her. Wang Dateng held his wine glass, basking in everyone's envy, with his chin practically raised to the ceiling. Ningbing tightened her grip on my arm and turned to signal that I should perform too. The corner of my eye twitched. Come on, don't look at me. That woman, Shang Xinci, played dirty. Why was she adding new scenes and raising the difficulty on the spot? I spent all 3 years of high school grinding through 5 years of past exams and 3 years of mock tests. I had never even touched a harmonica. So, how could I play this thing? I was trying to figure out how to save Ningbing's face when a distinguished guest invited by the organizers approached. He was S University's leading professor and one of the industry's leading materials science experts. As the Bai family's representative, Ningbing naturally went over to greet him. But the professor was an old-school German whose English carried a strong Bavarian accent. As soon as they touched on technical academic terms, Ningbing and her accompanying translator began to stumble. Just as the conversation was about to stall, I straightened my tie, walked over calmly, and greeted him in fluent German. The professor immediately turned his full attention to me. I smoothly took over the conversation, starting with his latest paper on a new nanomaterial and moving on to his laboratory's data models. We spoke entirely in German, and I never faltered on the technical vocabulary. The professor grew more interested with every word. At last, he patted me on the shoulder and told me to be sure to look him up the next time I visited the university. Those who had been waiting to watch me embarrass myself stood holding their glasses, but no one spoke for a long while. The smugness on Wang Dateng's face froze. Ningbing looked at me, her eyes shining brightly. Her vanity and desire to conquer had both been tremendously satisfied. I raised my champagne and toasted Shang Xinci by the piano from across the room. I had come prepared from the start. As the party drew to a close, Ningbing and Wang Dateng received calls from their families at the same time. Neither of them looked pleased, and they soon hurried away. I walked onto the terrace and had just picked up a glass of champagne when Shang Xinci came over with a glass of soda water. Looks like you came prepared too. I smiled without denying it. The elite connections she could introduce me to were the real main event. That professor from S University had been my primary target tonight. For those few minutes earlier, I had studied his key papers inside and out. You weren't half bad yourself. I raised my glass and lightly clinked it against her soda water. While Wang Dateng was making the rounds earlier, she had already spoken with several leading entrepreneurs in the technology sector. It was only an introduction, but for ordinary students like us, it could become a stepping stone to top jobs and crucial resources. We were simply getting what we each needed. After all, for today's performance, I spent more than half a month teaching myself piano. I nearly choked on my champagne. Are you even human? You taught yourself for half a month and can already play like that. It was all rote memorization. I only know that one piece. Unbelievable. You really are a top-ranked exam machine, turning even art into an exam problem to solve. I stopped smiling and leaned closer to her. Do you know how much longer this act can go on? No idea. But when their families summoned them earlier, they certainly didn't look happy. Who cares? We've gotten most of the resources we wanted anyway. Once they announce the breakup, we'll put on one final performance together, cry and beg them to stay, and it'll all be over. Shang Xinci didn't respond, simply watching the crowd in the ballroom continue to toast and drink. Meanwhile, the atmosphere was tense in the Wang family's manor study. Ningbing and Wang Dateng stood side by side before their family's elders. The head of the Wang family gave a direct order. At the beginning of next month, hold the engagement banquet. Dad, didn't we agree to wait until after graduation? This is far too rushed. Things don't always go according to plan. The head of the Bai family explained that the new energy project jointly developed by the two families had run into trouble. Their rivals were short-selling their stock, and they urgently needed a grand marriage alliance to steady the confidence of the board and shareholders. As long as the Bai and Wang families were formally bound together, it would send the clearest possible message to the outside world. There was no room for negotiation. Those ridiculous games you've been playing outside need to end now. As soon as the study door closed, Ningbing and Wang Dateng walked to the terrace at the end of the hallway. Neither of them looked happy. Originally, they had plenty of time to tighten the net at their leisure and enjoy watching their prey fall apart. But once the family gave its order, the game had to end ahead of schedule. Now that the engagement banquet was set for next month, they had only a few days left to wrap things up. Damn it. He thought of Shang Xinci at the piano and felt even more unwilling to let go. Only one corner of that iceberg had melted. If he confessed everything now, she probably wouldn't shed a single tear. She would only give him a cold look and walk away. What Wang Dateng wanted to see was Shang Xinci abandoning her pride to beg him to stay and finally admitting that she couldn't live without him. What kind of victory would that be? Looks like I won this bet. Ningbing leaned against the railing, her voice slightly hoarse. By the terms of the bet, she had indeed already won. After all, she and I had shared a full year of love. I would make her favorite eggs and bacon each morning and helplessly give in whenever she threw a tantrum. She was certain that I loved her and depended on her. If she told me tomorrow that it had all been a lie, I would surely demand an explanation with tearful eyes, then abandon all my pride and beg her not to leave. She had finally reached the moment when she could destroy the pride of a golden boy. That was exactly the scene she had always been waiting to see. But when Ningbing looked down and saw my message, "Are you home? Get some rest," she held her phone and remained motionless for a long time. Her heart felt squeezed tight, making it hard to breathe. She should have been happy and flaunted her victory before Wang Dateng. But whenever she imagined me looking at her with utter disappointment, she couldn't feel happy at all. Over the next 2 days, the atmosphere in the apartment grew strangely tense. Several times, Ningbing sat on the couch watching me, only to swallow her words. She seemed to be working up the courage to bring up the breakup, but didn't know how to begin. Should she simply say, "I lied to you. This was all just a game"? In her current state, she clearly couldn't say it. I had noticed her anxiety and inner conflict long ago, but I couldn't exactly add extra drama to my own role and break down ahead of schedule, could I? That would look too fake and make me seem unprofessional. And so it dragged on until the third evening. Ningbing sat on the edge of the bed, her eyes red, staring at me the entire time. I knew the moment was about right. It was time for me, her perfect partner, to give her a push. I walked over and pulled her into my arms, resting my chin against her hair. "Ningbing, you've seemed off these past few days. Did something happen at home?" She buried her face in my chest and nodded through her sobs. "Fang Yuan, something really did happen. My family's new energy project has run into serious trouble. The stock keeps falling. My father says the only way now is to unite with the Wang family through marriage. That's the only way to restore the confidence of the shareholders and the board." She lifted her head, her face streaked with tears. "Fang Yuan, I love you. I really do. But I've enjoyed everything my family has given me since I was a child. I can't abandon them at a time like this. I don't know what to do." She sobbed so hard her whole body trembled. Watching her cry, I drifted into a brief daze. I never imagined it. She could make even her pain and reluctance look so real. Since my scene partner was giving an outstanding performance, I naturally couldn't fall behind. I drew a deep breath, and my eyes quickly reddened. My voice began to tremble too. "Don't cry. Calm down." I cupped her face. My tone was firm, as if I truly intended to weather the crisis with her. "The VAT sharing constant and watch you gave me, along with those clothes and the computer, I'll sell them all tomorrow. To your family, this money might be a drop in the bucket, but it can still help, even if only a little." Ningbing froze. Tears fell one after another. She knew this money couldn't solve anything, but for a student from an ordinary family, giving up everything at a time like this carried enormous weight. I looked at her with a bitter smile, then wiped away her tears. "Ningbing, I've always known that we live in different worlds. My family is ordinary. I earned my way into a university. I love you, so I don't want to make things harder for you. Go back, do what you have to do. I hope you'll be happy in the future." After saying that, I didn't look at Ningbing again. I turned and took a suitcase from the cabinet. The moment I zipped it shut, she suddenly rushed up behind me and wrapped both arms tightly around my waist. "Fang Yuan, don't go. Please, don't go." She was sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. She didn't even realize the panic in her voice, as if the moment I walked out that door, she would truly lose something. I stopped and closed my eyes. Then I let out a long sigh. I placed my hand over hers and pried her fingers open one by one. "Let go, Ningbing. You're going to be someone else's wife. We can't go on like this." I freed myself from her grasp without looking back. I picked up my suitcase and walked out of the apartment. When the door closed, Ningbing's broken sobs came from inside. I stood in the hallway, smoothing the wrinkled hem of my shirt where she had grabbed it. I let out a long breath. A perfect wrap. 5 years later, I pushed my suitcase through the VIP exit of Xinci International Airport. An SUV was parked by the roadside. The window rolled down, revealing Shang's Xinci and sunglasses. She wore a sharp business suit. She lifted her chin at me. "Get in." I handed my luggage to the driver and opened the door to take the back seat. Am I really that important? The president of Shang Corporation came to pick me up personally despite her busy schedule. Shang Xinci removed her sunglasses and tossed me a thick financial report. Enough with the jokes. Tomorrow's board meeting. If you can't produce the latest technology licensing proposal from Germany, I won't be able to protect you. I opened the report and looked at the revenue figures. I couldn't help smiling. Over the past 5 years, Shang Xinci and I never became a couple. We became perfectly matched business partners. After our breakup back then, I used the connections Ningbing had introduced me to secure a recommendation from a professor at S University. Shang Xinci, meanwhile, used the resources Wang Dateng gave her to establish herself in the inner circle. I handled the technical breakthroughs. She handled capital operations and business management. Now, the advanced materials technology company we founded together had become an industry star. Its valuation had multiplied several times over. As it turned out, holding real resources in your hands was far more reliable than gambling on someone else's sincerity. As for love and romance, I'll leave that to fate. At least for now. Making money was more interesting than dating. At the industry summit that evening, Shang Xinci and I entered the ballroom side by side as rising entrepreneurs. As expected, we ran into Wang Dateng and Ningbing. Though they were arm in arm, there was obvious space between them. Word had spread through the circle long ago. Their business marriage was a complete disaster. After Shang Xinci walked away, Wang Dateng realized only then that he had fallen for her. In the years since their marriage, he had constantly sought news of Shang Xinci. He saw that forever clear-eyed woman who could never be controlled by him, as the one who got away, his unattainable ideal. Ningbing, too, could never forget the impoverished student who had been willing to give her everything, only to walk away of his own accord in the end. At the banquet, Wang Dateng's eyes kept drifting toward Shang Xinci. Ningbing, meanwhile, watched me from across the crowd. After the banquet ended, she came over alone. 5 years had passed, but she was still beautiful. There was only more weariness around her eyes. Fang Yuan. I turned around, wine glass in hand, and gave her a polite smile. "Ms. Bai, long time no see. Or should I call you Mrs. Wang?" The moment I called her Mrs. Wang, her face paled. She stared at me for a long time. "Fang Yuan, you've changed. Have you been well these past 5 years?" "Very well. I've adjusted well enough to the research environment in Germany, and President Shang has handled domestic operations brilliantly." I answered as if she were an ordinary business partner, politely but distantly. Fang Yuan back then. She took a step forward and reached for my sleeve. "Mrs. Wang." I stepped back, avoiding her hand. "The banquet is over. You should go home. Mr. Wang is probably still waiting for you. After all, you really are someone else's wife now. We shouldn't be doing this." I'd said the same thing on the night we broke up 5 years ago. Back then, it was an act. Now, I'm only stating a fact and drawing a clear boundary. I set down my wine glass and gave her a slight nod. Then I turned and left. At the end of the hallway, Shang Xinci was waiting for me against the wall. "Done talking. Let's go. We have a cross-border merger and acquisition meeting tomorrow morning." I walked over, and we headed for the elevator side by side. On the terrace, Ningbing stood alone in the night wind. She watched me walk without hesitation toward another woman, and finally covered her face.